Careers are markets, every skill's a stock. Some rise like rockets, some die on the dock.
So tell me about your product you released.
Yeah, man, I released my business, AI Evolving You. One line for you, I guess. It's different types of products, resources, information, built for people and organizations who are just trying to make sense of AI change and how to respond to it in a practical human way. That's the way I'd kind of define it. And the origins really just came from curiosity when I left my last business, kind of working around going, okay, AI is obviously huge. Everyone knows that. But what does it really do? How is it really impacting us in work, society, and in our lives? And me as a parent, right, with my children as the future.
Yeah.
And in that research, the curiosity turned into content. And in that content, I got a lot of good engagement, particularly from YouTube, where clearly, look, there's a big gap and we need tools, practical things that they can use to navigate. And this is what the business came about, mate.
Superb. Okay, so I've seen 3 or 4 your elements of products, and you know how I have a very abstract thesis about what you're actually doing. And essentially, if you look at the transition of human capital, it's kind of turgid. And it's turgid in the sense that the human is expected to do all the transference of that capital. Transfer it from school to college to university, individual. No, very few universities reach out and say, you know what, wait a minute, man, 16, I've run this random ass competition, it's called, I don't know, phys ed or whatever, or top physics student, and then I'm going to go and reach out and get that guy, because that guy is going to be our future PhD, maybe even a lecturer. And so you think, okay, wait a minute, why aren't you recruiting the best by actually going to the school and saying, I'll have that guy, just like you would do with high school football in the States.
Okay.
Or baseball. Why aren't these people being recruited, as it were? Because if your game is intelligence, then you should be recruited. And that starts there. Then jobs, you have to move from job to job. And your previous job, which you did well, to glaze you a little bit, what is basically, I'm going to be that advisor transferring the human capital from pillar to post. And I'm going to do that advisory role we would have in banking and say, well, this is a really good asset. This asset would really work in your company. Let me tell you what this asset's done. You believe me, because obviously I've got good reputation as an advisor. Take this asset. He will be with you for 5 years. Trust me, you're going to get a lot of capital value. And some of the stuff you've talked about, whether it be the tracker, and obviously you've been helping out pro bono, interviewing, is all about trying to get what is a turgid movement of capital to be more fluid. And in a time of stress, which we're in now, that's the best time to do it, because people have otherwise like, oh, don't worry, I can just do LinkedIn and do 15 applications. But now, just like we had GFC, the liquidity is dried up and the market's basically stopped. So therefore, a Bank of England has to come in and step in and provide liquidity. And you're not the Bank of England, but you're starting to provide some of that liquidity, even if it's only in the thinking of the individuals that they are much more mobile and liquid and part of the capital, which unfortunately is being laid off in one place and needs to find different homes.
Yeah, it's an interesting take on it, isn't it? If we marry up the idea of talent and human capital in as liquidity, as you say, what are the blockers? Why is it not moving? Is it because the market is all of a sudden become flooded with this, which then it just creates a bit of an interesting paradox, right? If you've got an excess amount of it, why is it not flowing? Like, people are still hiring. Look, the job numbers aren't brilliant, particularly here in the UK, but people are hiring. But it doesn't appear to see much movement. Like, for instance, I mean, it's anecdotal. If I go on LinkedIn, I don't see many people announcing roles.
Yeah. The big announcement, the whole hand.
Right. Yeah. It's more satirical now. I'm proud. I'm happy to announce the first beer's been open on Friday. I'm happy to announce I've been rejected for another interview. What I am seeing more of is this displacement of human capital, where through redundancies, not renewals of contract, loss of whatever it might be, nearshoring, there's lots of things that are stopping the movement, and that might be just here near shore. It might be, you know, if we go to, I don't know, say Poland. Actually, a friend of mine just set up an office over there for McGregor Boyle, one of the agencies in the UK there, in London here over there, and she's hiring quite a lot. There's a lot of movement in that sort of side. So, but here in the UK, if we focus on here, there does appear to be a blockage, right? And there needs to be a rethink as to what's going on with it, because the introduction of these fancy tools, AI enabled this, efficiency that, eliminate this, it's not helping.
Yeah, I think it's helped highlight the problem. So you could have been someone 5 years ago highlighting the kind of horrid nature of the ATS, which we know is totally necessary. And you could say, on average, I get 200 applications, and that was fine. It wasn't great, but it was manageable-ish. And then you hired a swarm of people to wade through those, using all sorts of behavioral stuff, which we know is problematic, to choose which person, end up roughly with the same person they knew they wanted in the first place. So, which was your previous company, what you were trying to solve. And so you say, okay, well, that wasn't great. Well, what happens when it's 2,000? To your point earlier about the number of applications being done. Yeah, I used to do 25. Now I can do 250. Excellent. So you're essentially doing a DDoS attack on every single talent acquirer, if you want to call it. Just one second, it's going to make sure doors closed. So you're doing... a DDoS attack on every talent acquirer or recruiter, and they can't manage it. So then they have to look what's happening now. They're looking more, let's just say nepotistically, anecdotally, people I know who are saying, well, we could put it out, but we're going to get 2,000 applications in like 8 minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to put it out to staff and ask for 1 or 2 derivatives from themselves, not necessarily the sun or whatever, or the air and line to the phone, but someone you know, someone on your street, whatever, which is a form of nepotism, rightly or wrongly. Life is life.
Yeah.
But that's the only method that I've heard people have been able to cope, because the 2 scenarios that I heard, 2 people I know well, have said, look, I just can't, HR just can't cope with the 2,000 applications. It's just too much. Roughly the same type of applications. Well, no different from if you and I and 2,000 other people were all trying to apply for SpaceX shares and we had no other differentiating factor, maybe marginal credit rating or whatever. It's just like, well, it's really hard to manage. And you're into lottery situations is what you're seeing. And that's where we are. So you've come at a point where the ATS was never satisfactory, but now it's been detonated by a nuclear bomb of AI.
Yeah, a DDoS attack is a very good, interesting way to sort of consider it, right? Because there is an influence, but then it goes back to the point, right? How is there no liquidity when there's so much capital coming through? You know, so yeah, and there are ways to mitigate this. Clearly, you know, what I don't never understand is if you think to yourself, I can't handle 200 applications, right? Why are you enabling your workflow to receive 200 applications, right? So if you're publicly saying we get too many, we can't do this, fine. Then why don't you say we're only going to review the first 20?
Yeah.
Okay, and publicly be open to this, right? Because if you and be very specific about what you're asking for. So I can't help sometimes when I've sat opposite people in companies where they'll say things to me and I'm going, well, that's just stupid. You've created a problem that you're now trying to solve.
Yeah.
But if you're all candidates ever want, that everybody understands rejection in life, that happens. What people don't like is sending something into the void and not hearing anything back. It's awful. They don't mind being Steve McQueen, mate, so long as the tennis ball comes back in the room, right? So why don't we be specific to go? We cannot legitimately review 200 applications without the adoption of using AI. And then that could, because if you do that, you've got another tunnel of problems that you start digging for yourself. But instead, you can go, well, we can use humans to review 20, let's say, arbitrary number. We're only going to receive 20 CVs. Now, the fear that they're always going to have is, well, what if we don't have, what if the best CV comes in 180th? Well, then you're going to have to go, we're going to review all 200 people. You can't have your cake and eat it is the issue. Because if they don't have these things introduced, we continue to block the flow of capital. It's liquid, mate. The market's liquid. It's just no one's fucking moving anything, you know?
So, okay, here's the more controversial take is at the 200 level, the CV was the artifact. At the 2000 level, basically the CV isn't the artifact. CV is now got to the stage where we can't actually use it anymore.
Oh, yeah, it's gone.
A teacher saying, you know what, I've got 20 kids, I'm going to read all their essays. Oh, no, I'm managing a class of 2000. I'm not going to read all 2000 essays. I'm just not going to do it. So you have to look for a different method. And that different method, basically, if you're a university of 2000, you'd say, well, I don't know, I can possibly do, I don't know, 1,000 vivas. Or I'm going to ask you a question online and you're going to send me in you speaking into a microphone and I'm going to listen to those answers or something. And even that might be problematic. But it would be the CV is at the root of some of the problems, but also is something that you're kind of, and I'm pushing you in a certain direction here, that you're talking to ish and you're doing lots of great pro bono work. But I think the CV is dead.
I
look like
totally
it's in a coma and there's lots of people around it and you've got the machine on and everything, but it's a dead artifact.
At the workshop in charity work I was doing yesterday for the Alita Foundation, one of the questions they grabbed me at the end was, do you think AI will replace the CV? And without even thinking, I just went, I hope so. I don't necessarily think I'm not hoping AI will replace the CV. I should have contextualized it that way. But I think I agree with you. The CV is beyond an coma, man. It's not getting resuscitated, and it is a cause of all these problems. It's a very archaic document that we've always used, right? The problem we've got is, mate, we've not found an alternative. Notice the backlash on some of the changes in hiring process people try and create. Hey, send me a video. I mean, people literally gag at that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
If it's coding, let's do pair coding or whatever it might be. Okay, let's try these different things. Let's write a motivational cover sheet. I've heard yesterday. There's these different ways that people are trying because they are losing the faith and trust in the CV document. Not only because it's unmanageable because of the volume, but it's also difficult to understand now, is this even a fair representation of the individual that I'm trying to assess because of all the tools they've got access to? And then the candidate's going, well, is it a fair appraisal of my CV because of the tools you have access to? So that mistrust, mate, means this document is just, it's a fallacy. It's a complete misrepresentation potentially of what you're trying to assess. So I think it has to be put down. It's going to get removed at some point. But we haven't got the suitable alternative now. Here's a hedge for you, mate.
No.
I reckon it'll be agent to agent. I think every candidate will have their own agent.
Sure. Yeah.
Of some sort. I don't know what that's going to look like yet.
Yeah.
But I believe that's going to work in a world where it'll be personalized to Gary, personalized to man, and then I will ask it to do these things with employers. And employers will do something of that. I mean, it's very early doors. It's just something like, but I think it's a prediction that could happen, mate, because the CV doesn't work. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think, yes, I totally agree with all those points. And if you look at other parts of your thinking, and which you're going to either have already or you're going to include in your product suite, you're essentially saying, there's going to be a different new version of the CV. And so the CV was really a compression. And I was going down some compression rabbit hole with my cousin the other day, talking about Claude usage. And we were talking about SVGs versus PNGs versus JPEGs and stuff, and the level of lossless or lossy compression. This is a really random conversation. So you're saying, okay, the JPEG, you can't.
Your wife's a compression widow.
Yeah, exactly. You can't really expand the JPEG because it looks pear-shaped. So man's got a JPEG on. Now you trying to expand that to basically a cross-Finsbury Park, it's going to look like shit.
Yes.
But the SVG, you can expand it to
Yeah.
but you can expand it. So it takes more memory, obviously, and it's more expensive to do. And you need better systems. You need like Adobe, or you need whatever, a better tooling system, a better Canva. But it's the least lossy, or the least lossless, kind of which way around to say it, but it's the least lossy compression of something that you want to represent. And so we were saying that the CV was like a marriage kind of proposal. This guy or girl is going to be with you for 10 years in the old days when it first came out, on average, maybe even 30 years, but was going to be around for a long time. But now, given that you're first part of the tracker, you've told me I'm literally in Love Island, like Tinder, where I can go on a date with a company, and then 18 months later I'm gone. But that's the norm. It's that norm. And so everybody's becoming like a CMO of a start, where like 18 months they just churn those babies, even if they're really good, because the environment is so harsh. And so if you're saying that, and your tracker's saying, well, actually, even if you're a legend and you get in, these guys are laying off 16% per annum. You haven't got to be a mathematician to work out, well, within 5 years, my number's up. So then you're saying, well, I'm not into a marriage. I'm into a kind of like long-term living partner. This is really bad. Long-term living partner. Maybe even just dating, because these companies get rid of me. And that was seen when I outsourced stuff, when basically we had 0 hours contracts and we had gig economy. The whole market, and now crystallized in some of the work you're doing, is basically saying that I'm literally in a very, very, very fluid dating market, and don't expect to get married for 50 years. It ain't going to happen with the pension and the gold watch. That's done. So in that sense, then I need tools that tell me where is the capital flowing. Well, man's showing me that on one side. How do I break the CV and become something else? You're talking about that as well. What is happening? How do I move my capital around? Just like my relationship capital. How do I move it around? How am I moving my human capital around?
Yeah, there's clearly not enough support for organizations to manage this stuff, and also the individuals, like you say, because of how this compression works in the market, your perspectives change, right? And people, I always find it sad when, I mean, on Reddit you see a lot of this when they get let go, and they feel, and the most common word I feel that I've seen, again, I've not measured this, mate, I've not counted it, is the word grief.
Yeah,
people feel grief when they lose a job, particularly if it's their first layoff, right? It's sad, man, and because they have given so much time to that business and so much of their life. I mean, the last post I read yesterday was 30 years, mate, in the same company.
Yeah.
But then reality is when they put their head above the parapet now, and they are, that is a marriage, mate, 30 years, and all of a sudden you get divorced, you're out in the street, and you're like, wow, what's just happened there? And let's stick your head above the parapet, you look what else is going on, what other people are seeing. On the same day, I'm looking at a post where someone's been let go twice in 6 months. Twice in 6 months, mate.
Yeah,
being made redundant. And so what does that tell you? What's happening in there? And there, we often talk about and speculate roles that should exist within an organization. Yes, quite often they'll outsource the kind of redundancy, to a what's it called, a penta? Is that what they're called? Something like that. I think my wife.
Yeah.
That will help you do the transition, right?
Yeah.
But there needs to be someone in that business that's not HR, when it's specific to, that can see these things down the road, I suppose, and talk about it. Like I don't know, mate. Maybe I don't want to call it a counselor or something like that, but this change in impact piece isn't siloed to the way we use technology. It's the way the technology is now impacting us, particularly if it's an AI layoff. That doesn't really sort of make much sense there, but I do feel like, our kind of cradle to the grave perspective of the business of jobs, that was long gone, man. I mean, I think that started to grow when the emergence of contractors came out because of, you know, outside of IR35, how lucrative it was.
Yeah.
You know, but now because of, you know, enhanced gig work, 0 contract hours made that people are allowing, and then now in this white collar, not, you know, very skilled, expertise ridden world, they're also suffering from it, mate. The loyalty that people use to exhibit to a business, mate. I mean, I remember back in the day when I was younger, man, the founder of our business, that recruitment business, Sean, he was so charismatic and energetic, man, that he would give a speech and I would literally feel like I could run through a wall for him. And I would work so hard for him because I wanted to work hard for him. That's gone, mate. We don't have that anymore.
No.
You know.
Totally. So obviously you've heard the recent news about Keir Starmer, and this will come back. It seemed like we're going off at a tangent, but we're not really. Why do you think Keir Starmer didn't work out?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because I asked the same thing to my brothers. Like, look, he resigned in the end because he'd lost any loyalists, I suppose. I mean, I'm not in privy to the inner workings of what's going on in Number 10, but I think he'd lost the confidence of it. I think ultimately he didn't work out. Is more so of a public opinion. I mean, it might be a case study in the end where you actually realize he's probably achieved more than the previous 6 prime ministers that we've had in this last 10 years. And it might be a case study to go, so why didn't the public like him? But that was the problem. In politics, it's not only what you do, it's your, like, he's not charismatic.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like Tony Blair, mate, but that man could talk, and he could speak in such a way as a public speaker that he could galvanize your thinking in a way that you would support him somehow, almost pseudo by proxy.
Yeah.
I don't get that from Keir Starmer. I think sadly, he's a bit wet. I think his policies on certain things have ostracized people. Look, mate, if the average terrorist now is labeled as a 55-year-old woman who's white, asking for not to kill children, and you're locking them up under your watch, you're going to have a lot of people against you on this sort of stuff. Look, and the mainstream media's continued bashing of immigration policies, etc., and his inability to sort of do certain things. Is people don't look at the numbers, mate. You talked about this previously. Facts don't mean shit anymore. It's about the narrative, and he was poor at spinning that narrative, unfortunately. So I think they don't help. They're probably the key things that. And Andy Burnham, mate, is seen as this savior because he's the king of the north, and you know, people buy into that, right? King of the north and all this sort of stuff. And he might well be, mate. I don't know. I don't know enough about him to suggest otherwise. But when people aren't up for a fight either, you know, we want people who've got a backbone, who want to fight for, particularly if you're going to be the leader of this country. And you know, he'll always be known for not the things he's accomplished, but for that picture of him picking up the papers that Donald Trump dropped, mate. That's what will be. No.
Okay, so my theory is, and I was talking to my brother about this the other day, saying that we don't realise, because we don't see the same sort of polarisation of the states as much, but most people are single issue voters. And we tend to have, especially us, we're like, well, you know what? Let's wait the top 5 issues that Man has and Gary has, and the top one has 0.4, the next one has 0.25, and then 0.11, and then no one's doing a weighted average. They have a single issue. And so if you're in certain parts of the states, it may be immigration. Certain parts of the states, it may be crime. Other parts, it may be protection of certain rights, like gun rights. And you can just transplant that to here. Certain people over here, maybe it's immigration. That was the Brexit vote. The Brexit was really about immigration, in short. The average, the term sovereignty doesn't mean much to the average person of our generation, because it's kind of like a term that you'd use if you were going to run an empire again. So in reality, it comes back to work. And essentially, what you're saying is the HR are kind of currently somehow involved in this AI enablement. And these AI enablement, those AIs are single process or single skill systems generally. And if we take it back to the CV is literally the weighted average of man. He's done this, he went there, he did this, and I've got to somehow do some mathematical algorithm and put the weights in. I think in the future, if AI does take hold and HR anyway involved, then they're saying this here that man used to do, I'm giving that to AI. He did the 21 other things, so I'm not getting rid of him. So now he's down to 21 from 22. That one thing I'm going to give to the AI. Just like in the old days, like 20 years ago, we say that one piece of the product control function or finance function, we're going to give it to someone in Bangalore or Pune. So in the same sense, someone from HR or someone from Ops going to say that one skill that talent acquisition person did, which could be just filter through CVs, if we judge by the Workday example, filter through CVs, then I'm going to give that to AI. That's that one skill. And so now we're saying, well, okay, well, if you're doing that and you keep on doing that, when the person applies, they might have had the 21 skills ticked. But in reality, HR are going to want to recruit for a single skill. And so I'm going to literally make up a term now, which people laugh at. We're going to move to a world of single skill recruiting. Just like we have single issue voting, but people don't say, oh, the economy and this and that. And no. People voted for Brexit for one reason in their hearts and voted against it in their heart for the same reason. People vote for Labour for one reason, and it's going to be that. And the backlash, and I see it around here in leafy kind of bougie Motherwell Hill, and I think, wow, that's such vitriol for what is run of the mill kind of function. They have a single issue, and it may be the G word for a lot of them, but they have flags in their windows in these like gargantuan houses in Motherwell. They've got flags like, really, in Motherwell Hill. So clearly they've become single issue voters without question, whether we like it or not. I think
I mean, on the Keir Starmer piece, yeah, for sure. The reality is, when the general election comes about, mate, the ordinary, me included, the average Joe on the street, mate, isn't going to be able to recite to you about the manifesto of these certain parties, are they? They don't do that. I mean, we are so persuaded by main media influence, where the media and obviously because the algorithms that are based around them, mate, we all just have our own little universe now. You know, you and I both have access to YouTube, but we have a very, very, very different experience. You know, it's very, very tailored towards you, and effectively what we get is echo chambers, and we get things that perpetuate and solidify certain perspectives and points that we want to see and we want to discuss. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by any means it's a single voting issue. When it comes to work, mate, 100%. The idea of whether it gets to a single skill will be interesting, but the skill piece is narrowing for sure. As part of this bigger project, the irony is the first product I was working on, I've not released. I've got a joint wait list at the moment because I cannot do it right just yet. I'm still working out. But the whole perspective was I would type in my job title, and then I'd work out a derivative of that role, so marketing, let's say, which would include marketing, intern, assistant, whatever, director, and then it would siphon out the key skills on ONET data about what a typical person might look like. Now, you obviously had added context depending on what industry and who you might work for, agency or in-house, right? But in the main, most marketers, let's say, do these 13 key skills.
Yeah.
And then what I did was, mate, I attacked it with AI-enabled skills across those 13. And what would that skill stack reduce to? And it is incredibly interesting, where you read no prizes for guessing, mate, which I'm sure you could see is, guess what skills they don't erode? Any of those that need human ethics, insight, oversight, authority, trust, whatever, communication, they stay. Everything else that can be done without any humanness gets removed. And that's what we probably will move towards, mate, where actually a job spec should actually just say, these are the things we expect you to do. These are the things we expect you to do with AI. These are the things with the job that AI will take care of that you need to know about. That's a clearer representation of, I think, what's going to actually happen. Maybe that unlocks the fluidity of the market, mate.
Okay, so let me resell my pitch, which I've literally just made up. So we've had circa 20 years of internet creators ish, give or take, maybe a bit longer, but from YouTube creators, let's take YouTube, because the YouTube involves so many, as you're seeing yourself, so many damn skills, it's impossible. I've got to be an editor, I've got to bloody do a thumbnail, and then I've got to record, and I've got to be able to speak, and I've got to be a script writer, I've got to be able to choose a platform. There's actually quite a lot involved, more so than writing a blog or whatever, which is hard enough. So let's take YouTube. So, and we take a Mr. Beast example. He is a single skill recruiter. I will pay Man £200,000 a year. I think he pays more than that, because Man is going to generate 50 thumbnails for every single video I do. And I'm going to do some, then I'm going to have this A/B testing person, man or woman, who's literally just going to A/B test the life out of them. That is their single skill. So I've got one single skill, just a thumbnail girl or guy. That is all they do. That's the super simple. I mean, they got more skills. They can graphic design and stuff, but single skill, single task. Then I've got an editor. Then I've got the videographer. Then I've got the cinematographer guy. Then I've got the bloke with the sound. And in many ways, he's had this. The whole thing is obviously as he got bigger, he was, well, wait a minute, I can edit, but I'm rubbish. I'm going to get that guy. And it's become almost like a movie where a movie said, I'm just going to hire a casting person. And that's what they're going to do. They're just going to cast. And it's a proper job, needs to be qualified. And it's a really hard job. I'm going to hire someone who's just going to do the lighting. I'm going to hire someone who's going to do the pacing. Someone who's going to do the editing. And I think the CV, I believe, is dead. And this is why I'm interested in the work you're doing with one end of the CV, but also people pushing back and saying, is the CV worthwhile? As well as the DDoS attack on the ATS systems, which are now null and void, is how do you compete with AI? AI currently, and in my mind will remain, because I don't think the systems are getting much better, a single skill agent. This is what that agent does. And you can weld them together to get all the skills that you need. Fine. But that agent, I'm going to pitch as the best skill at doing this. And we've seen it recently that Salesforce bought this company called Intercom for, I think it's 3.6 billion. Could be wrong. These Irish guys. And they had this product, a normal like customer service product and help desk product. And it was cool. It was like they were early. So it was a cool product. One of the kind of SaaS legend project, but it didn't really make a kill amount of money. And then the founder came back and changed it and said, oh, okay, we're going to make it into outcomes. So every time someone calls up, if they got a bad outcome, you don't pay us. And that revolutionized their business. Within a year and a half, they sold it to Salesforce. And so you could argue they're a single skill product. This is what we do. We're phenomenally good at it. We're constantly testing and making sure that we've moved from 45% efficacy to 46 to 47 to 52 to 55. Because we've got a single product agent, and it's called Finn. That's the name of it. I think some of the things that you're saying, I'm going to take the brutal end of it, is that in a year's time when you're doing that pro bono stuff, you'll be trying to find the one skill that each of them have, which is outsized. They all have really good skills. They've been at good schools. They've got university. They've got 9 GCSEs. But it's going to be, what's the one thing that person does? Oh, that guy's got humour, and he's an economist, but he's actually a humorous economist. Oh, okay, that's the outside skill, because who can make fun out of the economy other than the government? So basically, then you've got, oh, that HR person's really good at speech making, which you mentioned earlier, your ex-boss. Yeah, they can do all the other stuff. They're qualified. They got CIPD. Yeah, lovely. But actually, that person is going to be doing speech all day. So I think we're moving to a single skill kind of environment, and LinkedIn may lag, but I think it's already getting there.
Well, it's bloated, isn't it? And that's a big problem with LinkedIn, and it's just full of rubbish. So, including the stuff I put out. But to your point about that, I was kind of verging with that anyway, with the conversations I was having in this. For instance, like a lot of people go, "Do I write hardworking?" and I'm like, well, if you wrote that, it's like someone saying to you, "I'm really confident." Anybody that says to me, "I'm really confident," I kind of go, "Are you though?" Like,
I'm really tall though.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm so smart. Like, why do you need to feel the need to say that? So I'm like, well, you need to write your points in a way that it can be appraised in a way. Like hardworking, how do you show that? For instance, if I can see that you've always had a job during your study years, I know that you've got good work ethic, that kind of thing. It's assumed, but that is the way that I've always interpreted things, right? Because I like context. But to your point about the single skill thing, so wouldn't it be interesting when CVs, let's say they remain, but they've evolved, table stakes stuff that you can, like, it doesn't matter what the skill is required for that job. There is an agent. Now, it could be the organization's agent or your own agent, because it's single skilled, that can do that. So it's table stake. We don't need you to know. We just need you to know how to talk to the agent to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And then there are the non-table stake stuff that cannot be done by the agent, that sits outside of this parameter or periphery. And they are, you know, like you said, the thing, notice everything you mentioned, mate, is a human trait, humor. You know, AI can write a joke, mate. They ain't going to tell it like Ricky Gervais.
No, I don't think AI is that great at writing jokes.
No, it's appalling.
Yeah.
But the reason why it's like that, mate, at the moment is because they're obviously not investing, you know, capital in developing that. They want to understand law, finance, etc. You know, they're not doing enough in the healthcare because it doesn't make enough money. You know, they're doing all these different things. Well, actually, the irony is it would reduce the amount of money spent on healthcare. That's why they don't want to do it, right? They want to spend money on, hey, it's not at all surprising that software development is one of the first things to be hit. Yeah. Right, if you think about it now, because it's such a big market, actually, how many people want to do these different things? So that's why they've done it. So you're going to always have skills that AI won't do because the investment isn't necessarily there, including things like humor, you know, poetry, creativity. That's why they're saying these things will sit outside of it. But in our average day-to-day jobs, they're still incredibly important components. Yeah. You know, to do your job well in every facet, mate. You worked in a bank versus me working in recruitment. You know the human traits are on there, mate. I can't begin to understand the resilience that you require and the persistence and the negotiation and communication skills that you require to do your job in a bank, mate. You know, so that kind of thing that you cannot replicate with an AI tool. And the last point I'll say about this, mate, where I do see these kind of things converge is because you see the Perplexity post where the founder was saying, you know, these kind of trillion parameter tokens, right? Parameter models now with the reduction in token costs. You know, that supercharges something like a Perplexity, mate. Yeah. You know, they are a mask with all these different things, but they're very single specific things, right? They're a bit more open than single things, but deep research is what I feel Perplexity is best known as. Yeah. Yes, they've got the computer, but deep research it is. So anybody that comes out with a new tool that takes advantage of these parameter expansions plus the reducing costs, man, will mean you'll get a very, very nth degree skilled bot that can take care of these skills for you. And if used in the right way, you know, that will be the not so distant future of way the world will work because of hedging things like you've said about, you know, are humans going to be more of a single skilled kind of idea and then recruiters accordingly?
Yeah, so I kind of listen to a podcast every weekend, which is kind of a bit outside my wheelhouse, and it's these guys who run like a go-to-market company. I think one runs like a Soho House of go-to-market where they go away and retreats and stuff, and I don't know, rah stuff. And then the other one runs an actual recruiter for salespeople. And they had the guy from, who was he from? It wasn't Databricks. I think it was Databricks guy on, like the CRO of Databricks. And there was a little test they do a little test in there. They were saying, okay, so roughly how many SOP steps are there on average for a small SOP? SOP is a standard operating procedure. And so I want to just, not to use, but to the crowd, if anybody's listening, if I want to do a job, it could be like month-end bank recs or whatever, which I've done for years. It would be, these are the 13 steps on average that I do for a very simple task. And I'd write down each step. Open this system, SAP. Open the bank system, Bank One. Download this XLA. Download that spreadsheet XLS. Then marry the two up. Run a macro. Then parse them. Then pivot table, etc. So the lowest order is 13 steps. Some go 30. There's some that when we handed over to India were like 50, 60, 70 steps. Because we said we could hand it over to someone cheap because they're 60 steps and London's expensive. The best models currently on the market, not excluding Fable, like the 4.8s and stuff, can only manage 15 steps with an efficacy of about 35%. So 1 in 3 chance of them doing 15 steps consistently.
Right.
Yeah, better, don't get me wrong. But remember, the top models are expensive. So I've got some joker, Gary, who's paid peanuts literally when he leaves university doing a bank rec. Or I'm going to employ this tool, which is increasing at a CAGR of 10% in terms of pricing, if not more. Yeah, I'm going to take it under advisement. And so, but that, you could argue, is a single skill. That bank rec is a single skill. And so you'll have someone who develop an agent for bank recs, and it'll be like, they'll sell the shit out of it. And that would be good. No different from his customer service, there'll be a bank rec one. So I basically am saying to my son that actually, back to your point of the human skills of whether the humor or certain types of presentation or synthesis still, maybe is going to be something, but you still got to put a label on that, and that label has to mean something to someone. And so that's kind of what we're talking about now. What are those labels? Because that AI enablement's kind of big umbrella. And as we say, whether it be your Bill McDermott guy at ServiceNow, people are peeling off one skill at a time. Sometimes they're not peeling off any skill, they're just making the BS in the market. But say if they're doing it properly, they're peeling off one skill at a time. And so you have to keep on saying, well, okay, what skill do I tell HR this year for my bonus is the number one. And the next year for my bonus is a really important one. And each time keeping ahead of obviously what the AI is taking over.
Yeah, the groupings of these skills that remain, not the ones that the agent can take care of, is still AI, right? It's called actual intelligence. But because look, our brains are much more impressive than we realize or give it credit to.
Totally.
And AI is phenomenal at, let's say, the IQ stuff. But that is one facet of intelligence.
Yeah.
We have spiritual intelligence, emotional intelligence, and so on and so forth. That AI cannot replicate. This is, hence why I called the channel Human Intelligence. I was very keen to ensure that, look, mate, I love AI for what it's able to do. Like a simple case, or when it talks about CVs, for instance, I was talking to the delegates yesterday. I was like, who uses AI? Everybody puts their hand up. Who's used these AI tools? Yeah, everybody's like, I'm like, look, I'm not saying don't use AI. I use it for lots and lots of different things. But you and I both know, whether it's on a CV, writing a blog, writing whatever, it's a beautiful editor, but a very dangerous author.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and if you don't apply your human intelligence, or the actual intelligence aspect of it, which is what judgment, if you don't imply your human traits, which is not to be lazy and actually do the work, you're going to end up putting out stuff that is at best inaccurate, at worst a lie. So these things matter still, and because otherwise, Cloudflare, I've already said it, mate. The amount of bot activity on the internet now has surpassed human activity. Soon we're going to you have more synthetic content versus human content, right? And if the synthetic content isn't checked, isn't used with human intelligence, we're going to have garbage out in the internet, mate, that people are going to believe. Because it's so convincing, dude. It's confident, polished, but it's not true. So there's, to go back to your point, I totally agree with you, man. I think because of the way the structure has worked in a certain way, there are going to be people who are going to master that one thing, be it a bank rec or whatever that one skill is that you can go, do I use this person or use this business? If they can get it cheap enough, reliable enough, they will do it. And SOP is a great way to start, isn't it? Let's look at all these different SOPs and apply that. That's what every business is probably doing. If they're not, they're missing a trick here. But anything that sits outside of it, mate, they should maybe that's the department they should name. This is our human intelligence department.
That's not bad. So that fits in, because then you'd have an AI, artificial intelligence. That's not bad. Because obviously the point of this podcast is career capitalism. We've gone on, but essentially the people that remain after the 16% layoffs or 20% layoffs should be looking for ampersands to their title. Man,
what's an ampersand? Sorry, that's a new word for me. I don't know what that means.
The and sign. the and.
Oh,
So
okay.
yes, I'm head of L&D and AI skills. Okay, well, there you go. We'll give you one more year. Head of
Right, I see.
like HR plus AI enablement. Oh, okay, you're safe. And so everybody should be looking for an ampersand, because it might stave off just one more year. And also, obviously, look for potential in the market. What is the direction? And so the way that you've pitched your product, which I like, is it's kind of like the end to end of saying, well, obviously, this is happening. It's a truth teller. This is happening. So just wake up. This is the numbers. These are the numbers. And then in reality, it should prompt people to say, why those 16%? And sometimes there's no correlation with any real facts. It's just they just got laid off because they're really expensive. Whatever.
Yeah.
But why those 16%? Is it because they're too expensive? Then that already pitches you, wait a minute, obviously I want a pay rise, but once my expense ratio versus my output goes up, well, that means I'm next year's list, or the new 16. So that then says, okay, what is my new ampersand? Where is my new value add? And value add doesn't unfortunately have to be actual value add. It could be a narrative value add. The whole of SpaceX is really a narrative trade. So that is valuable, and AI can BS, but it doesn't necessarily do that narrative puffing up. And so each person should be saying, what is an element that I can add to that is kind of not that risky, that if it works out, then I just drop my first title. I'm no longer head of L&D and AI enablement. I'm just Wong, AI enablement. If it doesn't work, then next year you find another title until you really want to delete your first title. And then, but that might take 2 or 3 iterations.
So my point really was about establishing something in the department. As we've been talking, it's been more crystallized, because we were talking about, potential roles that come about, and it is having a figurehead or a group of a committee of sorts that will always say, unless this isn't the direction of travel that the shareholders want, right, or the business decides. But there should always be, these things should never ever be done by AI. These things should always be kept as human work, skills, whatever it is. And that's why I was like, oh, maybe they call it human intelligence as that thing, as a guardrail, like some capacity to run that piece, because what you're saying is already happening. People are bolting things on to make them, and I get that, makes a life raft.
Yeah,
it's the dinghy that they've kind of blown up during these massive storms. But as well as I do, a dinghy doesn't survive a massive storm. You need a bit more of a cruise liners. Fucking hell, don't survive in massive storms, mate. Sometimes.
No, don't need to start there.
Yeah, so we need something.
Yeah, so in that sense, I don't know. I've been looking at, other than forward deployed engineers and AI enablement stuff, there's not been as many of the renaming of the roles that you'd think that someone would want to, at least say, attempt to risk manage their careers by saying, well, I'm an engineer plus prompt engineer, or this and that. And so I think that's a massive opportunity if we are still retaining the CV for a short time, to say, well, actually, I am this plus this, and people, oh, that's interesting. And then my skills hierarchy is this. I'm going to tell you what they are. I don't need you or the system or LinkedIn to say, I'm not going to list them as a flat list. I'm going to say the single best skill is this. If you're interested in that skill, great. If you're not, then move on to the other 1,999 applications.
Yeah, I mean, look, taking on a niche is even going back to when I was doing recruitment, man. We were vertically aligned for that particular reason. It meant that all I ever did was talk to people in that particular, third party trading software was what I knew. So you knew what it did, how it did it, and you knew the best players in the market space. It meant that you were the specialist, right? You could be called so-called specialist. So I think that is the norm, and people are trying to isolate themselves around that, but they don't know what to put the bet on, mate. This is the problem at the moment,
I hear you.
Mate, if we ran the numbers, I did a look at this. I can't remember the exact stat now, but over the period when I was building Candidate X, the explosion, not emergence, the explosion of everybody putting DEI, inclusion, this, that, and the other on their job title on LinkedIn was insane, mate.
Yeah,
was insane. And look at it now, man. If you ran the numbers today, all gone. Right, all of a sudden, you're not an inclusive DEI practitioner or anything like that. You don't believe in it.
That was the wave. That was as I say, a kind of 8-year wave, maybe even a 10-year wave, and it's cool. But what you were talking about earlier, the layoffs itself tell you that these waves are getting shorter and shorter
Well,
because
yeah.
they're going to do
What do you mean?
that, the tsunami, and then they're going to wave pull just over and over again.
Well, but the problem you've now got, mate, is how many job adverts you'll probably read which say, "Hey, I want you to be AI native." Like, what does that even mean? So, because people don't know what it means, mate, everybody puts on AI solution this,
Yeah,
yada yada. Mate, I had one guy I saw the other day contact me and goes, "I'm the leading voice in the UK on this." And I was like,
no,
I mean, that's self-anointed, clearly, right? No.
fair play to him. Well, you got a Billy bullshit it, mate. So that kind of bullshitness is necessarily for most people in the office in reality, in terms of, because essentially a lot of firms had 2 or 3 waves, and you're like, bloody hell. And even like I've been listening to something about Meta the other day, and Meta is the classic one product company in reality. Yes, his M&A is absolutely insane. He's very good at mergers and acquisitions, buying obviously the what's its name, the Instagram.
WhatsApp and Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, and then he's obviously very, very good at second follower. So people always saying, "Oh, China, they're second follower, fast follower, whatever." Mark Zuckerberg's a fast follower. Whether it be Reels or this or that, none of that is new to Facebook. But now they're having to recreate some new shit, and it's not going well. So metaverse, whatever. I didn't think that was a bad punt, to be honest. The metaverse, it was a punt, and it didn't work. So maybe you should make 10 bets a year. And the same way that he obviously bet the company-ish on it, even though I say fair play to him, because at least he was giving it a go. And now he's struggling to give it a go. And a lot of engineers are leaving, and senior AI bods, PhDs, are leaving to go to other places because they're seeing that it's just not there because the culture isn't there. And so in many firms, they will want this single kind of skill person, but they don't know yet. They may never know, actually. And they will look and think, "Oh, man's got a crazy CV. He's done everything, but he's only really talked about one thing. He's only talked about one skill." I'm like, "Oh, well, why do we care if he's really good at like Slack notes or something, or some other thing, or really good at Scrums?" Well, we're a mock and roll kind of project. So they will see that as a negative because they're still stuck in the old paradigm of CV, then some sort of mental Malcolm Gladwell type thinking to say, "Well, I can take this CV and look into the future." Give me a break.
But the issue is, I think, with the CV, why in its defense, why it's stuck for so long, mate, is because you could argue that anybody can write CV. Okay. Whereas I think if you, like, some of these companies will do the video, I don't mind doing a video 30-second pitch, man. Let's put the camera on, just talk at it and answer the question in the best that you can. It's just, I look at it as interview practice, whether you get it or not. But a lot of people find that uncomfortable, you know, and then what you create is a disparity in the ability to assess someone comparably. And I think that's why the CV has lasted for so long, because you can argue everybody can write. Look, if you can't write about yourself in a way, then that's a problem. What if you're mute? You know, you can't speak, but you're an amazing person. So that's why video questions like that is difficult. I mean, on your point, by the way, a slight tangent on someone like Meta losing their people. I mean, it's now seen like Google, or even, you know, their engineers are leaving to go to OpenAI and, you know, these frontier models. You know, I think that, not today perhaps, but that is something that we should definitely look and explore, mate, because the vacuum, I think that potentially, or the magnetism of these frontier labs taking the creme de la, because they're paying the most.
Yeah.
Sounds like the most exciting stuff, mate. The reality is, if you've got Anthropic on your CV, I don't think you can be struggling to get a job next time.
Totally, yeah.
You know, so and whereas, you know, you those kind of blue chip companies to work for, like Google back in the day, they still are, don't get me wrong, right? But it's not the allure. Meta is not the allure that it once was. Notwithstanding, not only because of the technology that's delving in and playing in, mate, because it's a very competitive space, but the culture of that place sounds extremely toxic.
Yeah. So I hear that as well, but it does show you that most of these firms are kind of in an arms race scrambling. And I think that kind of trickles down all the way across the piece, because it basically says everybody is scrambling, including ourselves, to say not even what's the next big thing, because I don't think this thing is going to be unchanged for many, many years. But the next 18 months, and then there might be another sea change the next 18 months after that. And so people are thinking much more sporadically, and therefore they need to know what's happening in the market. You need to wake up. Your first part of your product is a wake-up call. These are cold, hard facts, mostly actual, and then obviously some really high estimated. So that already is sobering. And that accumulation of that says, shit. Then it's, what do I do with that? And what we're discussing now is that I'm going to say 50% of the role names will change within 10 years. Just like they did in the last 10, 15 years of HR. So many different names of roles, from the DEI to the TA. All of these roles just literally morphed out of kind of nowhere.
Do you think it'll end up being like AI marketer? I'm just trying to merge something together because you know, like you get a marketing assistant or marketing director. I'm now the AI enabled marketing director, AI hybrid. I don't know.
Maybe. In the first phase, you would have been called like 10 years ago, social media manager. 10 years before that, I don't know, head of PPC or something. Whatever it called, pay per click. So in that sense, you want to get a door.
No, Trina's inside the house. I think.
So in that sense, I think where in the early days, you'd be called PPC manager. Yeah. And then you move on to whatever SEO and stuff. Then like social media manager is still a thing. It's only been 15 years. Will they be a thing going forward? Not really. No, I think they'll just be called like media people. So I think you've got to have a 10-year transition of what name you find that's successful, that you've got at least 5 years, say.
So it's just roles evolving though, right? It's an evolution of roles.
Evolution, and also do I say devolution as well? Devolution. Yeah, evolution. Evolving because they're changing, and devolving because actually man had 22 skills that he listed, and they were all viable. And now we only really care about 3 of them. Don't even have to list the others. Like
SEO, for instance. Like, you know, if you think about it, I mean, I don't know about you, but I predominantly do most of my searching now via AI.
Yeah, same here.
Right, you know, not even to Gemini to use the AI search there, but mainly AI, right, using maybe Claude or whatever. So, you know, I mean, I already know that role's evolving from SEO to GEO, right, and things like that. So it is interesting to kind of see it, and because I think this is why I'm so interested in governmental policies for children and access to things like this. Like we spoke before we started recording about Norway and what they're doing with kids there, and then versus what China's doing with it and their embodiment of it as infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because the way we are using it generationally, AI generationally, that in the end will dictate how work looks at. Because there's so many of us interacting with it in a certain way that it will change the entire discord of an industry, of a company, right? How can it not? Because if marketing in the old ways is not the way people receive things anymore, you know, you have to move with this kind of phase with it. So it might be that become almost default that every role is AI.
Yeah, I think so. Just like every role, you can use the internet or Microsoft PowerPoint or something. So I think in that sense, it'll become like PowerPoint. Everybody uses it. Everybody can read them. Some are great, some are not so great, but we need it in a company. But there's no excess, well, actually there is, but you don't call yourself a PowerPointer. And so I've seen the rise of a finance function that really is Hans Christian Andersen of PowerPoint. And it's much to the chagrin of many other accountants who say, well, wait a minute, why is this function FP&A rising so fast? But they realized that actually we were in a storytelling phase, and PowerPoints were the medium that people understood. So we took what's happened, and we're saying what happened next. And of course, when you do that, you're making up shit, because who knows what happens next? We're not people who see in the future, but by telling a story, you could say this could happen next, this could happen next. You become closer to a politician than you were a historian. And most accountants were historians, and good ones were like very good historians. But that's not as interesting as someone who can tell the future, and the future's tell. So in many ways, that is a skill, being able to do a good PowerPoint. And I can see many roles across the organization where I think someone will be not afraid to say, Gary Bailey, head of finance, I don't know, top decile PowerPointer. Because then the choice is for HR, do I get Gamma in, which can do good PowerPoints, or do I employ a top decile PowerPointer like Gary?
So this is a good point what made there, mate. So do you think it's advisable for people to begin to do that, right? To start looking at their own skills and go, right, this is the one thing. If I had, it's almost gun to head time, because it's very hard, right, to go what you best at. What's the one thing that you think no one could beat you in this company at? And sometimes it's not necessary. It's difficult to quantify, right? So like but if it is a tangible thing like what you've just said there, PowerPointer, FP&A, whatever, report, right, whatever it is, that's what they should write and go publicly. This is me.
Yeah, because essentially what you want to do, you want to kind of do Billy Big Bollocks and say, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough.
Yeah.
So you want to, on your CV or whatever you call it nowadays, to say to HR, have a look at every single agent out there, every single system out there. Do a full total costing of security, this, that, devil knows what, ability to present it and stuff. And go on. But this, I'm available and I'm good as anybody else. But this, go and have a go and see if you're hard enough, and compare me to individuals, but also to AI. And if you can find AI a bit better and to do it cheaper, then there's no debate. You would have done that anyway. But I'm prompting you to go and do it, almost like kind of hip hop way, which is, go on, mate, have a go if you want. So
dance off.
It's really random, but you're saying, well, yeah. And if you're doing that, then someone can just say, well, yeah, I had a beauty pageant and you lost. Like, yeah. Back to your point of feedback, I would say, great, okay, shit, I need to get better. And so your point earlier about, well, they're lost in the morass and where's the kind of like the CV black hole. No, I'd get specific feedback and say, no, we've hired Gamma because Gamma can do all of this. And you're like, damn, okay, you're right, okay. And it can cross system, can do PowerPoint plus Keynote plus the other one. All right, okay. So now I know type scenario. So I think that's why.
But and I think also by doing something like, candidates have got to try something, so why not this? But the other thing, if they are presented with that, I mean, the feedback of any kind would be a godsend. I mean, I was speaking to a lady who's doing the rounds at the moment, man, and she's amazing. How she's unemployed, I have no idea. Young, very impressive individual, good background, lots of experience, social mobility hire, mate. All the tick boxes, and can't get a foot in. It's mental, but she was, moreover, the bigger point was, it's not necessarily getting rejected, it's the lack of any sort of credible feedback, mate. Credible feedback also.
Yeah. But then then that is also because we haven't made it easy enough. So if I go for a job and I'm like, I'm an ex-accountant or whatever, and I say, I think I'm like in the top 10% of people who know about monetization, they can say, actually, no, you're in 11, you're number 11. Like, okay, that's feedback. Because I've kind of made a claim, which is not outrageous, and they can make a claim and say, well, actually, no, we rank you in 11 in the world. Like, okay, cool. Because that is feedback. So, but if I lift it really broad and just saying, oh, I'm just a footballer, it's very different from saying, oh, why do you rank me as footballer versus how do you rank me as right backs in the European region?
Yes, of course.
And I think so somehow we have to enable the students to also have a spike in their CV, which means it's Amazon rateable, and therefore
okay. So the best at this, ideally in an industry specific to the kind of level almost, would be that's a cool job board, isn't it?
That is a cool job board. That's funny as well. That'd be a very funny job board. But it is cool. It's just like basketball. Someone will say, I'm the best free throw shooter. And here's the stats. And then someone will say, well, actually, yeah, you are, but only in non-clutch games or in games not in playoffs. But Steph Curry made a statement, and you can dispute it.
The basketball things, I mean, sport is always a great way to sort of measure these things. But the difference in sport is because, who was it? The Lakers team with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson. They were the most talented, weren't they? But they didn't win it until the coach came in and said, "What we do is we take your average across these different things, and if you cannot dip, you cannot dip below this." And it gave someone that baseline that they always appease over. The problem is having that one skill thing in the PowerPoint position, mate. Is how do you rate that? How do you rate that? You know, your claim as I'm the best at that. The different difficulty is you can't make that tangible. It's subjective.
Well, that's something you can do as well, because you can say, because essentially someone will say on their CV, "This is my graduation. It's how I've got better and better and better," whatever. They can just say, "Look at my PowerPoints 8 years ago." Sometimes they can't produce them, whatever, but emotionally he's one side. And look at them now. Look how they've improved, essentially. And if you think about PowerPoints as a really random topic, but you think about, there was a whole industry around doing startup PowerPoints. There's people, literally companies just do. So it wasn't a huge amount of money in it, but it was saying, there's a signal saying this is important. And so it could be Excel. Well, actually, I just didn't make the finals of the kind of Microsoft Excel. They do an Excel kind of competition. I didn't make the finals, but I got in. I was a regional winner. People say, "Oh, a regional winner in Haringey or Richmond or wherever." Okay, it's something. And so no, you don't have to be Steph Curry or Kobe Bryant or someone, but you're making a spiky claim which really should be testable against AI. As in, they can say, "Can AI do this better?" And sometimes they say, "Yeah," and then similarly they say, "Well, no, it's not AI." Then you're against humans, because unfortunately, whether we like it or now, their first test from the CEO is test man's claim against AI. I think, can AI do a better PowerPoint than man? And they say yes or no. If man wins that first round, now you're in a knockout stage with humans. That's too much football talk, but
It's okay, mate. We're in World Cup season. It's fine.
Yeah, so I think a spiky claim is our one takeaway. Spiky claim. And now I'm going to make a spiky claim for you. You have outsized empathy. Now, most banks don't give a toss about empathy, so you ain't going to get your job at a bank. so that's not one. But you have outsized empathy. You've got all the other skills. Some companies will want that. Some companies are like, who cares? But a company will say, well, what do you mean? Well, let me show you how. Let me demonstrate how I've shown outside empathy, beyond the pale, beyond the norm, beyond the first standard deviation. And here's the proof. And they'll be like, yeah, actually, you do. Okay. And some companies are like, who cares? And 99, who cares? And money's like, yeah, shit. We need someone with a bit of empathy, which we know AI can't do anyway. And even humans can't do. So yeah, that's a random example, but you my point.
Yeah, I no, but it's every time some of the delegates reach out to me, that is probably the move I'll move towards, though. You know, and start encouraging them to go, look, when you're looking for a job, just make it very abundantly clear what it is that you're best strong at. I mean, it's no different to writing a personal statement, right? The personal statement obviously leads with what you feel your key strengths are, but the small distraction, misdirection of a personal statement is that you try to be broad, too broad, because you want to make sure you don't capture, you lose anything.
Totally.
But the idea of actually sitting down and going, what's that one thing that you could put your house on?
Totally.
To certainly compete, if not the best at, what would that be? And be outlandish with that. I might try this myself, actually. Sit down and next time you check my LinkedIn profile, mate, it might just say something nuts. I don't know. But it is a good thing to be able to put your hat on to go, yeah, come on then, let's have a go and see whether AI is better than me at this, right?
Totally. We'll end it on that note, saying we want to see your spiky thing to say, come and have a go, AI, if you think you're hard.
Come and have a go, mate. Nice one, G.
And then people are like, oh, okay, this guy's bang up for money. That's what we like about him.
Mate, I'll send our next query. I'll write to AI now. Claude will be like, fuck you.
With empathy, but I do it with empathy. Have a go if you're enough with empathy.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, mate, take it easy. It's a good one.
And you, brother. Take care.
With the product launch. Cool.
Cheers, G. Speak soon, man. Bye-bye, mate.
Careers or markets, every skill's a stock. Some rise like rockets, some die on the dock. future's getting priced in faster every day. You either own the wave or get washed away.